The first Palm Sunday, as we're back again, this would be John 12 through 13. And it was the first day of the last week of Jesus' time on earth. And he had sent one of his disciples to go into town, and there would be an ass tied there that he could get because Jesus had already arranged for himself to be able to use that donkey to ride into town, into Jerusalem. Now this was after he had raised Lazarus from the dead, and so it was a matter of importance here that the people were really excited. You know, here he comes. It's the Messiah. He just raised somebody from the dead. He's healing the sick. We are going to be able to now have the Messiah who will lead us into freedom and into control, they probably thought, over the whole world. And so as he does this, he's going to ride into town on a donkey. And one of the things that was true in this time period is if you came in on a horse, you were coming in as a victor, as a conqueror. But if you came in on a donkey, you were riding in peace to that area. So he was riding in peace into Jerusalem. And the prophet Zechariah had written centuries before that the Messiah would ride into Jerusalem on an ass. And Jesus, by doing this, was for the first time claiming openly that he was the Messiah. And as he came into Jerusalem, people spread the word. They turned out in droves to honor him as he came down the road. And some spread their garments on the road. They put palm leaves down, hence the name of Palm Sunday, and they waved them in the air for him. And it was, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And the Pharisees who were there said, "Hey, they're calling you the Messiah. Don't you think you should quiet them down and tell them not to do that?" And Jesus answered that if they were silent, the very stones would shout out. And as you come into Jerusalem on the road, the traveler sees this whole panorama of the city suddenly breaking into this glorious view. And when Jesus reached this spot, he actually burst into tears. He said, "Oh, Jerusalem, if only you had known those things that would have given you peace. But the time will come when your enemies will besiege you and utterly destroy you, and all because you did not realize that God had come to you." So Jesus enters the city to this great parade, basically, or praise from the people. And as he gets there, he begins to preach in the temple, teach actually in the temple, and heal people. So he's going to spend the rest of the week healing people and teaching in the temple. And one of the things he did while he was in the temple is he cleansed the temple. He drove out the money changers, the people who were profiting off the temple. "Why did you make my father's house a den of thieves?" Because they were actually stealing money from the people who would come in to worship. And so he removed them from the temple and made them leave. During this week is when Judas decides to betray Jesus. We don't really know why Judas decided to betray Jesus. Some think it might have been that he felt if he forced him, he would become the Messiah. Others think he just held contempt for him because of the things he didn't do that Judas wanted him to do. No one really knows that answer. But we do know that Judas sought out the leaders of the church there, the Sanhedrin, and offered to betray Jesus. And he offered to do it for money. Now, they were willing to give him 30 pieces of silver. And so he accepted that. Now, 30 pieces of silver then was about the cost of a slave. So he had prepared here, he had plotted the arrest of Jesus and his death. Then it's time for the Passover. And the disciples want to know, where are we going to celebrate the Passover? And so Jesus sends one of them into town. He tells them, you will see a man carrying water. Follow him. He will take you and show you the upper room that we will celebrate in. So they go there that evening to celebrate. When they get there, the first thing that happens is the disciples start to argue over who is the greatest among them. And so Jesus takes off his outer clothes, ties a towel around his waist, grabs a bowl of water, and begins to wash the disciples' feet. Now, this task, washing of the disciples' feet, was one that was normally done by the lowliest of low slaves in the household. It was the most menial task anyone could perform in a home, to wash the feet of the strangers who came in, or even any people who came into the house. Jesus did this. And as he got to Peter, Peter said, no, you shouldn't wash my feet. Let me wash yours, thinking he was honoring Jesus. Jesus told him, you're not part of my fellowship if I can't wash your feet. See, sometimes, not only is it important that we serve, because that's what Jesus came to show us to do, but he also showed us it's important to allow people to serve us. Sometimes we think, oh, no, I can do that for myself. I don't need your help. I can do that. But many times that person needs to do that more than you need the help. It's important that we are sensitive to allowing others to help us, because that's also shown here in this command. Not just serving, but being willing to be served also. And so Peter says, well, if that's the case, then wash my hands and my head too. And Jesus said, no, if you've bathed, you're clean. You only need your feet washed. And he proceeds to wash the feet of all those who are present at the dinner. Then Jesus said, one of you is going to betray me. And the disciples began, Lord, is it I? And John asked him, who is it? Who is the one who's going to betray you? And Jesus said, the one whom I give this bread to, that I have dipped in a dish. Now, understand that when the bread was dipped in the dish by the server, by the one who was throwing the party, so to speak, that was an honor to the person who received it. So again, giving Judas a chance to feel shamed and to change his ways. But instead, Judas rose to leave. He knew that was the last appeal from Jesus, and it would go in vain. And Jesus said, do what you have to do quickly, as Judas left. Now, the other disciples didn't really know what was going on here. They thought he had sent Judas on a mission, which he had, one that had to be carried out. and one that Judas had chose to be his responsibility. So then Jesus took the bread, and he broke it, and he blessed it, and he said, "Take and eat. This is my body, which is given for you." And next he blessed the cup of wine. "Drink this, all of you," he said. "This cup is my blood that I am shedding for you, that a new agreement might be made between God and man, so that many will be saved from their sins." And then after dinner, they left there and went on their way to the Garden of Gethsemane. And that will be the next story.